U.S. President Donald Trump has been announcing tariff rates on a daily basis now, whether it's reciprocal tariffs by country or by products such as autos and steel. And now, South Korean officials say there is a room for negotiations, but where do we go from here? We have our Kim Do-yeon in studio for more. Good evening, Do-yeon.
Good to be here.
So, Do-yeon, why don't you walk us through the trading relationship between South Korea and the U.S. at this moment in time?
Right. To begin this discussion, it has been looking good for South Korea. From January to April, the United States imports across the world hit an all-time high, but imports from South Korea actually declined, causing Korea's ranking among U.S. import partners to fall by 3 places from 7th to 10th. And that's according to Korea International Trade Association. Now take a listen to an expert explaining this situation.
Even among the top 10 import partners, only China and Korea saw a decline. In Korea's case, it's notable that key Korean export items are increasingly being replaced by those from countries like Vietnam, Mexico, and Taiwan.
We also have to keep in mind that many of the items that South Korea sells to the U.S. are subject to separate tariff rates. For example, we know autos have 25% tariff imposed under Section 232. Autos are more than 30% of South Korea's exports to the U.S. Chips and pharmaceuticals will also have their own tariff rates. And of course, there are also some of South Korea's strengths in the export market. And the White House has made it clear that these tariffs on specific items are not up for negotiation, saying South Korea is not likely to get its own lower tariff rates for these.
Do-yeon, let's focus on the autos since we have the number now. 25% could be big. And we saw the Hyundai Motor Group expanding its production in the U.S. to avoid this. The question is, how is South Korea faring then?
That's right. In terms of competition, a 25% tariff is applied to all nations. So the playing field is still level against major competitors like Japan. Autos and auto parts are the #1 export items to the U.S. for Korea and Japan. But Mexico is a competitor that has an advantage over South Korea. Take a listen.
We should pay particular attention to Mexico. In the case of automobiles and auto parts, Mexico benefits from lower tariff rates under the USMCA, which puts Korea at a relative disadvantage in terms of price competitiveness. Moreover, Mexico's share of the U.S. import market for automobiles and parts has been expanding rapidly in recent years.
And in terms of pricing competition, currency is also something to look into, and that is why the U.S. has been monitoring the dollar exchange rate closely as it comes up with the tariff rates. First, take a listen to how this works.
Let's say a 10% tariff is imposed, but at the same time, the exchange rate rises by 10%. In that case, the price doesn't become 10% higher, even with the tariff, thanks to the weaker currency. It effectively stays at $1. That's why a weaker currency neutralizes the impact of tariffs. So we end up comparing how much the yen has weakened versus how much the won has weakened.
Now that is why South Korea and Japan are likely to enjoy better tariff rates than China. While the won and yen are decided according to market trends, the Chinese yen is not really decided in that way, and that's why the U.S. is monitoring the situation closely.
Right. Do-yeon, let's go back to that 25%. Of course, it's open to negotiations, but if chips, autos and pharmaceuticals are getting their own tariff rates, what should South Korea be concerned about?
Right. So there are 2 items that are sort of up and coming in the export field: K-beauty products and ramyeon. Now, these 2 items have been on the rise when it comes to the exports to the U.S. In fact, South Korea ranks first in cosmetic export to the U.S. And as we all know, Buldak noodles has been some sort of a phenomenon in the U.S. Now, let's focus on the beauty products first. Many of the items popular in the U.S. are indie brands that are sold on Amazon. Of course, these are subject to the reciprocal tariffs right now at 25%. There are some that produce locally in the U.S., such as the biggest Korean OEM, ODM cosmetic companies, but that's a small portion. Also, big cosmetic brands are looking for ways to start local production.
In particular, major Korean cosmetics companies like Amor Pacific and LG don't have local manufacturing facilities in the U.S. right now, so they're considering options like acquiring existing plants through M&A, since building new factories on site isn't feasible in the immediate term.
On top of this, consumers are smart. There have been trends of people hoarding Korean sunblock before the tariff hit to survive the summer in the U.S. Now, as for the ramen industry, the two biggest players are facing different fates. Nongshim, the maker of Shinramen, localized production in the U.S. for all its supplies. Samyang, the maker of Buldak, exports from all are exported from South Korea. So the tariff rate at the end is likely to directly hit the company.
Indeed. Doyeon, thank you so much for coming in tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.